For this week's astrology, we're going to dive deep into the psychological workings of the energy. This podcast will be short and sweet. I did take a break because I needed it. I had some intense aspects that asked that I recharge, retreat, and rest. I do have a sun in Pisces with a moon in Virgo, and that full moon in Pisces really called for some R&R. So that's what I did. I took my own advice. Last week, I was letting everyone know to take care of themselves, rest, recharge, and I did that myself too. So this podcast is a day late, but I am here. So there's not a lot going on this week. We do start with a very fiery Aries moon, and by Tuesday it forms the third quarter square to a Taurus fixed earth moon, and we end the transit of the moon in the sign of Cancer for this week. That's Sunday the 18th. The moon goes into the sign of Cancer at 12:59 a.m. and that's Pacific Standard Time. So we have a very fast-paced week as we start with a cardinal fire moon and we end the week with a cardinal water moon. And depending on the moons that start off the week, that's how quick we feel the moods change. So this is about initiation, and the rest of the aspects this week are going to tell us how we feel about this initiation. And we have the sun with a trine to Uranus and also separating trine to the North Node, but very close. So when we have this configuration, we have a lot of mental activity. This is the time that we're going to be connecting to other realms, dimensions, and getting ideas and information from the ethers. We're going to be very attuned and sensitive, and this is something that can be overwhelming for some, especially if they're not grounding enough. Even though this sign trine is a earth trine, it's still about grounding that information, and it's separate, right? It's pulling in knowledge and then manifesting into a concrete idea or into an actual tangible object. So it does take some alchemizing, and there are elements that tend not to mix very well. We have air and we have earth, and they separate. The density is so separate from each other, but they still work together as air flows matter or flows soil into different places, fertilizes, things like that. So there is a beautiful, harmonious relationship that they form, but it is with some effort, because no matter what, air and earth will never truly bind. They'll work together but not bind. So think of this aspect as making sure that these ideas that you are channeling or getting, or intuitive hits, or even extra nervousness, that you get to write them out or speak them into truth or speak about them to someone, journal, really use the power of thought into writing it into a reality. And this is why I love journaling, because you can get the power of thought and then you alchemize it to a written form, which now becomes reality, because you can actually look at this journal later and you'll see what you wrote. So it's in existence now. So make sure you're channeling this information this way, so you can first tame all this active energy that you have in your mind, and also provide some relief from the overthinking, because this aspect is great for that. But if you're not prepared, you'll feel overwhelmed, over anxious, nervous, and kind of discombobulated. Like you won't feel like you're fully present or grounded, because there's something about the energy that's not flowing smoothly. So it'll make you feel a little bit off sorts. So pay close attention to that and channel in that energy at most appropriate as you feel fit. Honestly, this week does call in for some deep breath work. So I would intentionally schedule some periods in your day to just sit in silence and exercise some pranayama or any other type of breath work routine that you do, or try something new, learn something new. So like that, you can really channel this energy and embody it within. So I love Sun trine Uranus aspects, because these natives with this aspect, they usually are very innovative and they really think scientifically to improve systems, to improve laws and regulations that impact society for the better good of all, because Uranus is the collective. So as the Sun trines Uranus, and the Sun bringing purpose and meaning into the individual's life, these people or these folks seek a lot of meaning through the ideas, through the way they live their life. So when we have this aspect active in the sky, we are in general interested in that same agenda. So you don't have to have the Sun trine Uranus to feel some type of inspiration. We're kind of going with the flow of the energy, and that's when you can tap into the flow of how everything's feeling. And the outer planets tend to have a lot of psychological influence in our lives, in our body, and also our memories and thoughts. Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury. That means it's like Mercury squared. It's more intertwined with the mind and more deep. So Mercury's already the mind, and then we throw in the energy of two Mercuries, which would be the energy of Uranus. So it's really in the mind, right? So it becomes more psychological. And because Uranus does have a sense of unpredictability, anything with Uranus is pretty tricky, even if it's a positive aspect, because you never know what to expect. But the positive aspects can provide more positive things versus challenging. But even the positive can actually be a challenge sometimes, especially nowadays that we've been having so many changes. A lot of us are being conditioned to not want to change anything more. It's like the more, like, how much more can we take? How much more can we change? And this can like slightly cause a little bit of anxiety or stress in the system. So this is why even the positive trines can be a little stressful or trigger a little bit of stress, but nothing to worry about. It's just extra nervous energy that you can definitely channel out by going into meditation. But whenever we have mainly outer planet aspects during the week, that means that we're going to be working on our psychological and evolutionary thought and approach and development. And as a society, we're becoming much better in accepting that mental health is something we need to take care of. It's actually a part of health. And whenever we have a lot of aspects to the outer planet, it becomes a time or a period that we have to go within and start working on our mental health, working on our psychological awareness and evolving it. So it's quite positive with that trine. It looks like a lot of people are going to get very beneficial energy with this. It could be new direction, it could be new epiphanies that then trigger you to take action later. Now, by the end of the week, this becomes more challenging. So we don't have a lot of aspects during the week. We don't have a lot of planets communicating during the week. Not to the sun. I mean, the moon's still making her aspects, but by the end of the week, Friday, we have a square from Mars and Venus, And that same day, we also have an opposition to Neptune from the Sun. And this is the second evolutionary, psychological, mental health aspect. When Neptune opposes the Sun, there's hidden information. There's something that we can't see, and we're seeing it, but we're not really processing it as the full picture. Take this aspect like going underwater and opening your eyes underwater. So you can still see some things, you can still make out some shapes, but you cannot see very clearly. And you can also not see very far. That is what this aspect activates within us. So it can feel like a week that your energy can be depleted, very low. And honestly, Sun Neptune oppositions can be a hit on the vitality. So this could be a time that you need additional R&R. Now, I have the Sun square Neptune in my chart. So whenever I see or feel a duplicate transit, like an opposition, conjunction, or square, those are the difficult ones with the Sun and Neptune, I definitely feel that I need some rest. And I schedule these recordings and plan out for them a month in advance. So I had already seen that this was approaching. So I took a mini vacation and then took time off, etc. So I won't feel as depleted. Now, what is the remedy with this aspect? It's creative arts, it's music, it's dancing, singing, painting, drawing, reading poetry, falling in love, binging on romantic movies or reading a romantic novel. So there are some remedies. It's all about getting lost in love. Neptune is the higher octave of Venus, and we're having Venus form a square to Mars, which brings matters of love and relationship to the foreground. And we already had an activation of Mercury in Libra and Jupiter in Aries talk about relationship last week, but now we're having the actual rulers of the relationship houses, which is the 1st, the 2nd, the 7th, and the 8th. And since these planets, Mars and Venus, are squaring each other, they are talking about solving any type of relationship problems, especially marriage or partnership problems. And this could include business partnerships, it could include contracts, but in general, we see this more with our partner. We see that there's things that need to be addressed and changed and talked about. We have Mars in the sign of Gemini, and we have Venus in the sign of Virgo. And this could be that in the partnership itself, both parties feel that they're not being served correctly, that maybe one person is not meeting the other person halfway. And both of these signs tend, since they're ruled by Mercury, they tend to focus more on the mental connection versus the heart-centered connection, like the energy of Libra and Taurus or even Pisces. So you have to approach the solution of problems by looking at different avenues and kind of coming to a middle ground and making sure that both parties feel that the new agreement in regard to the expression of relationship, love, and how they serve themselves to serve each other, are there for each other, treat each other, communicate with each other, is neutral. It's going to satisfy both. Now, Mercury is retrograde in the sign of Libra, so it could be that this is a conversation that is a continuation of something that started before and maybe was tabled because it was too intense to speak about, and now it's coming up again because just the energy needs to come out and you need to solve this. Or it can be something that was bothering you and you never mentioned, and now because Mercury, it's retro, it's bringing out all these emotions and things that are within, because you're going within, and it's bringing them out into the forefront so you can deal with them. So again, Mercury and Jupiter still maintain with that opposition, and this can cause an over exaggeration of emotions, feelings, and maybe miscommunications. So be very intentional and very careful on how you are communicating your needs, wants, desires, etc. At the same time, Mars is making a square to Juno in the sign of Pisces, and Venus is making an opposition to Juno. So marriage partnerships are being bombarded in regard to changing how they're communicating with each other, how they're being devoted to each other. And again, in a relationship, it's going to be not just about how you communicate and treat each other romantically, but also how you work as a team, how you manage your money together, how you do things together, how you work together to achieve goals and to achieve resources, and how you're spending your money together. So these are very sensitive topics, and you're going to see them come out. Now, the good thing is that Mars is forming a trine to Saturn. It doesn't perfect this week, but it's coming into orb. So whatever it is that you change will be long term. And this is great because it becomes a new milestone within the relationship. And then from there, we end the weekly transit. So as you can see, there's a lot of dialogue, a lot of things where we're going in and digging in deep and changing things. It's mutable energy with the sun in Virgo and Mars in Gemini, and also Venus in Virgo, and then we have Juno and Neptune in another mutable sign, which is Pisces. So there is some changes, but again, the mood of the week, we started with the moon in cardinal Aries. We're ending with the moon in cardinal water, which is Cancer. So this means that we're making a lot of progress. We're starting something new. We're changing to start a new chapter. So again, thank you so much for being here. If you liked this podcast or this forecast, don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell, comment below. Let me know how you are feeling with this week's energy. I absolutely love to read your comments. It brings me so much pleasure. I also reply to all my comments. So thank you so much. And remember, always stay curious and ask what's in your stars. Bye. Love and light.